The proposed reforms affecting the taxation of the foreign income and capital gains of UK resident non-DOMs announced in the spring budget are pretty extensive, and we have covered them in some detail in TechLink. We'll continue to do that as the legislation moves along its way to becoming part of the statute book. However, the proposed changes will not stop at the remittance basis applicable for income and capital gains. The changes are going to affect inheritance tax as well. Currently, you'll be well aware of this, an individual's liability to inheritance tax predominantly depends on their domicile status and the situs of the asset. So if you're a UK resident non-DOM, only your non-UK cited assets are excluded from inheritance tax. So only your UK cited assets are subject to inheritance tax. And of course, you can become deemed UK domiciled roughly after 15 years of residence. But the government has announced in the spring budget that they intend, as is the case for income tax and capital gains tax, to move to a residence-based regime for inheritance tax also. And that will also take effect from the, well, that's the intention anyway, will take effect from the 6th of April 2025. Although there'll be a consultation period on how this is best achieved, and so the timing of any legislation enacting the changes is currently unclear. And that's especially so in the light of the fact that we have a general election coming up. So it's suggested that an individual's worldwide assets would fall within the scope of UK inheritance tax once such an individual has been UK resident for 10 years and remain within the scope of inheritance tax on all their assets for 10 years after they've ceased to be UK residents. So effectively, a crunching up of the deeming provisions from 15 years to 10 years. Under the current rules, as you'll be aware, non-UK assets held in trust structures, which were established by resident non-domiciles before they became deemed domiciled in the UK. So these trusts, pretty widely known as excluded property trusts, are outside of the scope of inheritance tax, even after the resident's non-dom has become domiciled under the general law or under the deeming provision. So provided you were non-dom when you established the trust, and provided the trust continues to hold non-UK cited assets, that trust will remain an excluded property trust and outside of your estate for inheritance tax, even if you are one of the potential beneficiaries. So how are these trusts going to be treated? Well, in an attempt to provide certainty to affected taxpayers, the government has confirmed that even though it's likely these sort of trust structures won't work after the 6th of April 2025, new ones that is, they have confirmed that the treatment of non-UK assets settled into a trust by a non-UK domiciled settlor prior to April 2025, a future date that is, so prior to April 2025, will not change. So these will not be within the scope of the UK inheritance tax regime. So that might provide a reason for some individuals to retain their existing trust structures and also, very possibly, to use the 6th of April 2025 as a kind of cut-off date to set up an excluded property trust before you can no longer do them so tax efficiently. The announcements on non-DOMs probably represent the single biggest change to the way in which non-UK domiciled individuals are taxed in the UK. Further details will definitely emerge on all of the changes in due course and hopefully well in advance of April 2025 to allow taxpayers time to prepare for the new regime. Many conversations, I'm sure, will be going on almost as I speak. This is an area that's going to continue to develop, especially as there'll be a general election before these new rules come into effect. And a change of government is almost certainly going to bring about further changes. The Labour Party, even at this point, have already been reported as intending to toughen up these new provisions should they come to power. That is, should Labour win the election. A couple of things they have mentioned specifically is that they intend to look at scrapping some of the transitional provisions, notably that 50% reduction to tax on foreign income for 2025-26 that is currently in the proposed transitional provisions. And to the point I've just been talking about, removing the continued favourable inheritance tax treatment of excluded property trust established before the 6th of April 2025. So this space is definitely one to watch. Given the uncertainty, specialist advice before undertaking any planning is absolutely essential.